Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Light Gate. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in the state of Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Roku, we are on Rumble, we are on YouTube, and we are on Facebook. It's a beautiful Monday. I hope yours is beautiful too. And we have a really good show to you for today. I just want to mention our beautiful sponsor is Carnation. These people are great. I love it that they're on our network now, and I can't say enough good things about them. I grew up with them. I use them all the time, and you can make some really good stuff with their products. Thanks. Okay, Preston, take it away, honey bun. Go for it.
Nation Monday. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Dolly. Thank you all for joining us on the Light Gate. Can you believe it? This is episode 83.
No.
We're almost 2 years now, so I'm having all kinds of fun with you guys, with Dolly, with our wonderful guests. So thank you for joining us. Super excited about our guest tonight. He's a returning guest, Mike Clelland. He's best known probably for his research into the UFO owl connection, but is quite an amazing researcher all around. Now, before I bring him on and start saying hello to all you lovely folks in chat, I do have a little bit of a sad note, and I just want to give a shout out to a fantastic researcher who we did have previously on our show. He's an author as well, and he is best known for the Mysterious Valley, doing research into the San Luis Valley in Colorado, and other books. His name is Christopher O'Brien. He just passed. He's now on his great journey into the great beyond. We love him dearly. You can check out his show on the archives. But yeah, a moment of silence for our dear friend Christopher O'Brien. Very sad. We all have just a short time on this planet, so we've got to make use of it and have fun. So there you go. Christopher O'Brien, a great man. Okay, I'm a little choked up, sorry. All right, you guys, let's have fun on the show. We've got such an amazing guest. Before I bring him on, let me just say a quick hi to all you lovely people, such as Leah, who is the first in line tonight in comments. Thank you so much. You guys, if you have questions, get them in early. Our guest is quite knowledgeable. He's got a lot of information, so definitely get those questions in early. Harry Carey, a wonderful, generous donation on Super Chat. It's really appreciated. Thank you so much, Harry. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
And Janie Mashburn delivering as well. Oh my gosh, Janie. So very wondrously, kindly generous of you. Thank you. It means a lot. It really helps us immensely. So thank you. Who else do we have? We have Teresa Levin. We have Joseph A. Always great stuff. Yay, I hope so. Scuba Maru in the house. Always great to see you, Scuba. Pam Harris. Love owls. Yes, me too. We had a little screech owl that used to hang out in front of our house when I was a kid. It was always there, right on the telephone pole, doing its little thing. Okay, who else do we have? We have Sabretooth Clark. We have, appropriately enough, the Owl Man 77. Very cool.
This is your show tonight.
Hello, Peak. Hope you're doing well. Love your art. Namaste. We love you. Thank you. We are absolutely in endless awe and gratitude of you. So thank you. It's such a joy to have you here in chat. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Brings tears to my eyes how wonderful you are. We have Nipa Koku. Yes, made it live. Awesome. Good evening from beautiful SoCal. Love and light from Olivia, my former hometown, SoCal, land of endless sun. I will say once it got 120 degrees outside in the summer and I could not go outside and the air conditioner broke.
Yeah, it was 113 when I was there. Trust me, that was bad too. Okay.
Just about died.
Yeah.
But I miss it. I do. We have Janice Connett. We have Scott Mabry. Has anyone seen a UFO lately? I haven't. As Dolly says, they're actually not here right now. So, okay, who else do we have? Michael Kennedy bringing the popcorn. We've got Sandra. Hey, Sandra. Hope you're doing well. We have Scott Mabry, Thanksgiving with the aliens. And what could
There
be
you go.
from that? Aliens do not eat ice cream. I'll eat ice cream. I love it.
No, they don't. Actually, they don't.
They don't?
That's funny. No, they don't. No.
Because there was a rumor going on that from one of the whistleblowers said, "Oh, aliens love strawberry ice cream."
No, they don't. Not the greatest. Not at all.
I would imagine that certain aliens do not enjoy their food nearly as much or entertained by food as we are. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe the Nordic types, the tall white ones would, they're milk imbibers, but the tall grays not at all. Never. Okay.
Jay Kirshenman says hi from Virginia. We got Linda Catlett. We have Angie. Hello, Dolly and Preston, and all you lovely people in chat. Yes, you guys are lovely people. You're family to me, honestly. We have Pam Harris. We have Crochet Sensei. I love that.
That's cool. I need to get to know you. I crochet. I'm a crazy person for it. I love it.
All the way from Australia.
Oh, boy.
We have Bridget Bambrick. I have my own owl story I've always wanted to tell him. Gosh, we've got to find a way to take
put it in chat. I know. We need to do that.
Yeah, if you
There's
can.
The way. Our network hasn't given us that ability yet. It's supposed to be coming soon. I hope so.
I hope so, because that would be awesome.
Yeah.
We got Sparks sending love from New Zealand. We got Becky Duncan from Virginia.
Nice.
And the Muppy Otter from Texas. Someone who had an owl dream.
Cool.
Owls are amazing. Yes. We got Il Gatto. We got RP Bajbi. This is my first live attendance. Well, welcome.
You're nice. Welcome.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, we got Georgie Keene. We've got Joseph A. Gray aliens love ice cream, especially strawberry. That is one of the rumors going around, but Dolly just said,
No, I'll tell you a secret. They have very pointy teeth. There's a reason for that. Serious reason for that. They do not eat fruit or milk or any of that.
When you told me that, it was interesting because that's what Gary from England told me. I've had a few other people tell me that. So that was really interesting when I met you and you're like, well, actually they have pointy teeth. I'm like, here we go again. Adam Ward, Rebecca, welcome to the fifth dimension.
Yay,
we got Joe Rivera. We have Dana from North Carolina. We have Ruth Kleiber.
Hi, Ruth.
Thank you for friending me, Ruth, on Facebook. You squeezed in because I'm pretty much at my friends limit, but every now and then people drop out and I squeeze in whoever I can. So
you made it.
Glad we made it. Yeah. We have CT Guitar Guy, my two favorite people on YouTube. Love you both. Oh, thank you. We love you too. Anjay, condolences to Christopher O'Brien. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Alexander Sinka, hello from Slovenia.
Ooh.
Very cool. European Union. Wow. We are reaching out. I love it. Thank you, Alexander, for joining us.
That's been fun.
Who else do we have? We have CSI Crowdsourced Illuminations. CT Guitar Guy, rest in peace to Chris. I knew him personally, didn't know he passed. Yeah. Very sad. He actually offered to help me with my first book, UFO Healings, and provided a couple of cases. He's like, I got a great case for you, which he did. Little Sparrow Tarot. Great Q&A you did on Reddit. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. We got, who else do we have? Kaleidoscope Eyes. Oh, we got Cliff Olinger. Oh, I love you, Cliff. Thank you so much for joining us. We have Audrey Miller. Oh, Bridget. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sweetie.
The past two solar eclipses, a barred owl has shown up hooting outside my bedroom window the morning of. I live in Cincinnati, not exactly the woods.
Very nice. Okay.
Very cool. Probably a barn owl.
Maybe.
Okay. Let's see, who else do we have here? I better get started or I'm going to get in trouble. It's already 8 minutes in, 10 minutes in. We got
Batista. Silva.
We got Il Gatto. We have Susan Lawrence. We have John Schaefer's and Renee Cruz with
Hi,
Look at
Renee.
all those
I
emojis.
know. She's good at that. Yeah.
Lee Mack, hello from the UK, way past my bedtime. Can't possibly stay awake.
Uh-oh.
You want to catch up? I understand, Lee. So sorry.
Night,
Not a whole lot we can do.
Oh, sorry.
Team Ginger, hello from Michigan. We got Bigfoot, Littlefoot. Hello from Kentucky.
Nice place.
Definitely
I like
Bigfoot there. We got Daus Kidi. Okay, I'm going to pull this through now. Justin saying hello. We got Bob Thorson with another
Thank you, Bob.
generous super chat. Hi,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Hope you're doing well. We very much appreciate your super chat donation. And thank you for joining us.
Yep.
I promise I'm almost done, or at least I'm trying. The Sun Dragon. We got Mr. Kilroy. The Men in Black are not without hats. Oh, Crochet Sensei. You guys are just crazy amazing.
The Sun, I see you all over the place. I'm glad to see you here. Hi.
We got Blair Ford. We got Bartleby Grinmere. We got a lot of you guys. West Decker. Oh my goodness.
Oh, thank you.
Just got home after hospital stay. Oh, sending you healing energy.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. I'll bring on Mike. He's waiting patiently. Orion's Belt. Hello from Sweden. Come on. Say something Swedish.
I'm saying it the nice way now. Hello. Hey, boo.
We got Until the Sundies. We got Sovereign Cosmic Wildman. We got a huge group of you here in chat. Hi, Yahara Medium. She's a previous guest on our show. We love you. We got Wayne Mansfield. We got Deb Snapper. We got Me in Trouble if I don't wrap this up right now. Octopus Ride from Bridlington and Richard Minnick. And I now must start the show. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Love you, love you, love you. Our guest tonight is Mike Clelland. So excited to have him back on. He was a previous guest. We have talked all about his research into owls and the owl connection. Let me tell you a little bit about him if you haven't had the chance to see that previous episode or haven't heard of him before, which would honestly surprise me because he is quite a prominent figure in this field and been doing research for a very long time. I love him. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a researcher, author, illustrator, podcaster, and experiencer. Here, let me put up the little banner there. He is actually an expert in ultralight backpacking and has illustrated a bunch of books on this and advanced outdoor techniques, how to cook, how to climb, how to survive, and more. He is the author of the highly praised, very successful book, The Messengers, in which he explores the mysterious connection between owls, synchronicities, and UFO contact. He's really the only guy who has dove deep into this connection. So he's the go-to guy for owls and UFOs. And in fact, it was his own first-hand experience with these elusive effects that were the foundation of his research. So yeah, that's The Messengers. Besides The Messengers, he's written the companion book, kind of the sequel to Stories from the Messengers, which continues his research into the owl connection. Also, Hidden Experience, about his own personal experiences. As he says, I'll just do a brief quote. I wrote about the most difficult time in my life as it was happening and posted it on a blog. There's more to that. But most recently, he wrote a novel, The Unseen, a paranormal thriller about a town full of mysteries and secrets, ghosts and premonitions, and more. We'll definitely be talking about that. He's also a podcaster. He's been hosting The Unseen for some time, but has his own podcast. He's appeared, of course, on all the major podcasts like Coast to Coast, pretty much all of them. So let's just bring him on before he
expires. Wait a minute. Yeah.
There we go.
Well, here I am.
Welcome.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Good, very good. This is not you thought this was a stuffed toy when we said hello before, but it's my microphone cover. So
very cute.
It's not my cat either. So
yeah. So I guess you knew Christopher O'Brien as well, huh?
I'm not pretty well. Yeah, he was co-host for a while on the Paracast, which was, I think that's even still around. That was one of the earlier podcasts that was out in the
Yeah.
early, like 2006 or so. And, I interviewed him when I started a podcast in 2009. And I think he was like the third or fourth person I interviewed. I think the book was called Stalking the Trickster. That he wrote a book about
That's
the
right. That was
trickster.
his third or fourth book.
Yeah,
Fourth.
and but I met him at a conference, and it was, I'm much more at peace with this now. But wow, there was a chapter where stuff was rough. This was a rough subject for me. So and he was really great to me, where I could basically say, listen, I'm in the early stages of whatever's going on, and I'm like, or let me say, I'm in the early stages of just dealing with it, where I did not deal with it at all until about 2009 or so. And honestly, it was the blog, working on the blog, that I began in 2009. And I started a podcast along with the blog. And that was me processing, like, publicly. You read the little quote, where, like, I said, oh, I talked about the most confusing time of my life publicly on a blog. And that was actually surprisingly helpful. And that was 15 years ago. But blogging and that type of thing online was a little different than where, it feels like the internet has gotten more crowded, let's say. And so I feel like I made a ton of great friends that I continue to be friends with today from that original chapter of blogging. And I really did it for about 6 years, and then started working on the book, The Messengers. And that totally took over my life. And I still have the blog, and I still post things now and again on it, but it simply does not have the same life that it did. It seems like
I have a
go on.
secret wish. You know what it is? I wish all UFO researchers developed a way to communicate with each other without anybody else talking, without inviting outsiders in. In other words, it's a place you can go to hook up, leave messages back and forth to one another without having to use telephones, emails, or anything else like that. I think it would be a great asset for all researchers across the board. That way, interesting things that are going on or happening, all the researchers are in the know right away. They've networked together.
Yeah. Well, that would be great. I'm sure there's stuff like that for. Yeah, there's got to be a way to do that.
I think there's a few Facebook groups, but I don't know if they've taken off.
There's no back channel for this at all. Yeah. I've looked. Your closest you're going to get is IMB. What is it? IMBD or whatever.
That's not really a communication.
A lot of them are on that though, and then there's LinkedIn, but that's very public, and just anybody can see what you're doing on there or find you there. This should be a way for us not to be harassed in any way, shape, or form. I think experiencers should have their own back channel as well. And a researcher.
There's quite a few of those, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, as far as UFO researchers, I don't know.
I don't think so.
I totally agree with you, Mike, in terms of blogging your own experiences. This is always what I recommend experiencers do. Write it down.
That's my first thing I say. Yeah. Keep a journal.
Right.
And date it as best you can. And even if nobody ever reads it, it's helpful for you to organize your own thoughts by writing it down. I think any therapist would say that about any pressing issue.
Yeah. And my experiences with Christopher O'Brien were wonderful. I just adore that he's a very thorough and objective researcher, not pushing a narrative, letting the evidence take you where it may, and not throwing out the paranormal aspects of it. Which
I was living for a while. I now live in Washington State, but I was living in Idaho for like almost 25 years, and then I was like right out there in the cow fields and the hay fields and the pastures, and about, I guess if it was under a mile, probably about a half mile, just down the dirt road past my house, there was a cattle mutilation. And I contacted Chris O'Brien, and there was a lot of kind of hysteria. It was like in a very small newspaper in town and stuff like that. So it was covered in the newspaper. And I went in and talked. I didn't see it. I was not at the site. I didn't hear about it until well after it was cleaned up. But I did go into the sheriff's department and got pictures. She like, here's the pictures we took, and I said, hey, I do like a little bit of paranormal research, and I would love to ask some questions. She was pretty shaken up. She was I'm not sure whoever did, it was a very small police station in this county, Teton County, Idaho. And but and she seemed shook up, and I called her on it. I said, "You seem genuinely like you were at the site, and she was really disturbed by it." And then I contacted a couple other people, and I'll tell you that Chris was the most balanced and most low key and the least likely to just jump to a conclusion, where other people were really quick to say, "Oh, it's aliens" and stuff like that. And there was this white chalky substance that was found near the body of the cow, and he saw the photographs, and he said, that might have been raven poop, because the birds come and pick at it, and then they leave a white chalky droppings. So and I just thought it was really good to have someone not jump to the most extreme conclusion.
Exactly. I've always said it, skeptics are a tough lot, but equally damaging are those who are overly zealously kind of believers who kind of naively believe anything people tell them.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, you have to go through the checklist of what might be a possible explanation,
precisely,
before you jump to the deeper conclusion. And sometimes it's, or especially me as a researcher, I have to be able to ask folks, like, okay, let me get the really simple questions out of the way. What could it have been a dream? Could it have been this? Could it have been that? So, and, but
I always warn people, I'm going to ask you some tough questions. Don't be offended if
Yeah.
I ask, if you are, under the influence of drugs or things like this.
Questions
You have
to
to ask
ask about cattle mutilations and that you have to start with scientific factual finding. In other words, you have to take pictures of everything. You have to take samples of every single edge that got cut. Okay. You have to take blood from the animal. You have to take sperm if it's left, or sputum if it's left. You have to go inside their nose, around their eyes. You're taking tons and tons of tests. Okay. The next thing you need to know is, what year did that one happen?
Ooh, this would have been about 2012 or so, 2012, 2013.
Okay, it's Idaho. What volcano had erupted anywhere near that, or what radioactive?
There's all kinds of factors. Yeah.
Yes, you have to ask yourself, what was the government doing? Because they'll go back and they'll pick up animals without your permission or mutilate them to take stuff from them to check levels, because they've just conducted a huge experiment at everybody's expense. Okay, you have to take all of that into factual thinking through it. ET doesn't have a need to grab an animal and mutilate it for any reason whatsoever. They don't do those kinds of testing on anything. They have other means of ascertaining whether we're doing whatever on this planet.
Yeah, that's what CT Guitar mentioned. He said Chris came to the conclusion long ago that the animal mutilation stuff was us, which is what Gabe Valdez said.
Exactly.
So,
right.
There's still a lot of confusion about all that.
Right.
So, getting back to your research, Mike, I know we talked earlier on the previous episode, but how did this all roll out for you? Is this something you thought you would be doing?
Oh, my word, no. Oh, no. This came totally out of the blue. I was living my life. I was living in this cute little town in Idaho, right next to Grand Teton National Park, and I was doing outdoor work. I was working in the mountains all summer long, and then I would do winter ski trips. So I was teaching winter camping in the Tetons and in around the greater Yellowstone area.
Oh, beautiful.
So that we'd go out for 18 days in the winter and live in igloos.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was like so fun. Oh, it was so fun.
Are you sure? It sounds difficult.
Oh, it was hard work. But I mean, we carried a lot of gear, and we had, we were eating well, and we were sleeping well, and we had thick sleeping bags and stuff like that. So, but wow, was it? And the skiing was wonderful. So, cross country skiing in that kind of terrain. So I was living this kind of idyllic life. So the problem was I was getting older, right? So, you're getting older, and that's a one-way road. And so my job description was like keeping up with college students who were taking these trips. So I was like, oh my word. As the years went on, by the time I was in my early 50s, that was not as easy as it was a decade before. But so there was going to be a day when I was going to end all the work with the outdoor school. And but I've told the story many times, but I went on a camping trip, which is so interesting. This is so interesting because I just had this conversation with someone today that they were like, a lot of your stuff revolves around being outdoors, a lot of your stories, your personal stories. And so I met this woman who was also working for the school. I don't like to mention the name of the school because I'm such an oddball at this point. The school does wonderful work, and I don't want to. You could, if you Googled me, you'd find out about 2 mouse clicks what the school is. But but the and I haven't worked for the school for over a decade. So I met a woman. She was working at the school. We're still good friends, and I kind of said, "Hey, wow, you've been here all summer long. You're living in this beautiful place right by Yellowstone and right by Grand Teton National Park. You must have been camping all summer long. It's real camping culture." And she said, "No, I haven't camped once." I said, "I'll take you camping." I just said, "Well, I'll take you camping."
Wow.
Pardon?
Never camped once?
You haven't?
No,
No,
she.
yeah.
Oh no, she hadn't camped in this area.
Oh,
So
okay.
so I'm like, great. So I said, yeah, well, I'll take you out. And I mean, the Tetons are a beautiful mountain range, and it's right next to Yellowstone. So there's lots of wildlife, lots of moose and elk, and so I took her out for one night, and we didn't take a tent because the weather was going to be really nice. I had lived in the area for a long time, and there's certain sort of been October, either late September or really early October. I can't quite remember. And that time of the year, you get just this stunning calm weather. So we just looked at the weather, didn't take a tent, and slept out under the stars. And so this is to tell the story correctly, I have to include these details. I was sitting on a big flat rock in a field of wildflowers, and I was making dinner on a little camp stove. And I'd been working all summer. I was totally in my element.
Mhm.
And her name is Kristen, and she told me something. And she was talking about something. I was like, whoa, this woman is much smarter and much more insightful and much more spiritual than I ever would have guessed. And then as she was talking, an owl flew over us. And then a second owl, and then a third owl. For the next couple of hours, as the sun was setting, these owls flew around us. They landed on tree branches near us. They landed near our... it was really remarkable, really, really remarkable. And then we laid down under the stars. And so, owls are very quiet in flight. So you lay on your back, you're looking straight up at the stars. And these owls would fly right past our faces, and they would blot out the stars for just a half a second. And it was like, oh, wow. It was so cool. So the next morning we were like, that was awesome. She said, I'll take you out again. You want to go again? We can go out anytime. So 4 days later, we went on another camping trip to a different part of the mountains. Now, this time it was a little colder. And as the sun was setting, I said, let's walk up to that hilltop. This is a high elevation mountain, so there's not many trees, and there's big rolling kind of open terrain, and there was one kind of prominent hill. It wasn't much. It was close to our camp, and it was like, let's just walk over there. Let's walk to the top of the hill, get a view of the sunset, and then when we come back, we'll have warmed up from the walk, and when we climb in the tent, this time we had a tent, we'll be warmer, because it was kind of chilly. It was that kind of... So we went up to the hilltop, and as soon as we got to the hilltop, 3 owls flew around us. So this is the same woman, a different part of the mountains. 4 days later, 3 owls. I'm convinced it was the same 3 owls. There's no way I can prove that, but it's called the short-eared owl, and they're about maybe 9-10 inches tall. They're super cute, and it was really a remarkable sighting. Now,
What time of the year was it?
September, October, either very end of September or the very early October. I don't have the exact date.
Okay.
And so I did not talk about this at the time. I put it in a diary entry, and then I have since been talking about it. Now you can't shut me up about it. But when I saw those owls both times with Kristen, I heard a voice in my head that said, "This has something to do with the UFOs." And I had some experiences growing up. I had missing time. I'd seen a close-up UFO. And then when I was 30 years old, in the winter of 1992, 93, it would have been January or February of 1993. I saw 5 gray aliens, the 5 skinny gray beings in my yard walking towards the house. And wow, let me tell you, that was like, I pushed that away like, no way, I dreamed it, never happened, nuh-uh, not me. And so that kind of stuff was percolating in the background. So I'm looking at real owls. I had read Whitley Strieber's books, so I was fully aware that people see owls in connection with UFO events. There was no UFOs in the story with Kristen and I, but I was looking at these real owls, and I was like, could this be? And then this voice in my head said, this has something to do with the UFOs. So afterwards, I started researching. So after seeing these owls, two things happened. I started researching owls, the mythology of owls, the totem meaning of owls, the spiritual meaning of owls. And then at the same time, I started looking into my own UFO experiences I was, at the time I was living close to Leo Sprinkle. He was in Laramie, Wyoming. And that was on the other side of, it was a long drive, but it's a beautiful drive. So I made a couple visits to see Leo in those early days. He was so great. Leo died 2 years ago. And wow. And that was another giant in this field that
huge,
that we lost. Yeah. And I think Leo was 91 when he died, 91 or 92.
Whew.
So here, let me, one more detail. When I started my blog in 2009, so this event took place in 2006. 3 years later, I started my blog. I was still good friends with Kristen. She had moved away, but I called her up on the phone and I said, I put the very first couple of blog posts. One of them was this story I just told, seeing these owls. Really, really magical experience. Really magical. And I contacted her and I said, hey, what were we talking after? This is after that I published the little essay, a little blog post. And I said, hey, Kristen, what were we talking about that very first night when we saw the very first owls? And she said, oh, I remember exactly what we're talking about. She said, I was giving my most heartfelt definition of what God means to me. And so that detail, like, I'm not at all churchy, but I do recognize the sort of mythic power of what she said. So I was right from the very beginning, like, aware that like, this is right at the beginning of my own research, right at the beginning of my own, like, when I was say research, I was kind of researching myself. That there's this mythic power that can show up within these reports sometimes, and you must know what I mean. You get these kind of fantastical.
It all has to do with psychic ability. When she was talking, she was transmitting big time. And I want to ask you a question about owls that I know you probably know the answer to.
Sure.
But I'm going to ask you anyway. You realize that owls have almost parabolic faces, and that their hearing is extremely acute.
Yes.
Okay, they can hear a mouse chirp a foot under the snow.
Yeah.
Craft emit a frequency, even though you can't hear it, they bloody can. And they are drawn to that. A lot of UFO experiencers realize that there are owls afoot because of that. Every place that I've ever lived in my life, because of my contact, I have billions of owls around me all the time. I've learned to speak their language practically. I can hoot like one at certain there, okay? And it always amazes me that, do you associate that? I mean, do you realize that they can hear them and that they will follow them? They're curious animals. They want to know what that sound is. And they're watching you watch them as well. Owls will watch humanity. There's a thing about them. A lot of people say they're not intelligent. It's not that they're not intelligent. It's that their brain operates in the here and the very now. So they're going to be drawn to whatever it is they're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're drawn to it. I mean, drawn. I've had owls staring at me from the trees all night long going, hey, how you doing? You know, it is incredible that they do that. And one of the things that experiencers need to realize is that if you see a pack of owls suddenly show up, look for ET. Because
believe me, that those nights I was like totally like on my guard, like, okay. And so, like, I remember staring at those owls, like, kind of trying to size them up. Like, this is not a screen memory. They were just like this big. They were cute. They were doing owl things. They were flying. Like, they were owls. And because I've talked to a lot of people who've had the screen memory of owls, and it's always a little kind of like they'll what's very common is people who have the screen memory. I figure anyone who's listening to your show or watching this is up to speed on what a screen memory is. But people will see an owl and there's not that many North American owls. There's not that many species of owls in the world.
No, not a
So
lot,
if you
no.
see an owl and you want to look it up online or in a bird book, it's not that complicated. You're going to figure out what kind of owl it is right away. And they'll say, I looked up, I couldn't figure out what kind of bird it was. I couldn't figure out what kind of owl it is. And I was like, ooh, that's a clue to me, because there's
wow.
not that many. Yeah. So, and what you were saying about this, so in the beginning of The Messengers, the first book, early on, I speculate that owls could be exactly what you're saying. They have the acute sight, they have the acute hearing. I kind of speculate, are UFOs essentially giant dog whistles
Yeah,
for
to them.
the
Yeah. That's really the light they emit.
right?
I mean, it's, oh my God, they see all of it. They see an ultraviolet light, okay? And UFOs emit ultraviolet radiation all over the place. And if you had ultraviolet eyesight, you'd see them. The military can see them through their goggles, their night lenses. They're hugely bright. And if you've seen films of them looking at them, you can see that they take up the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Owls are uniquely equipped and qualified to be, the first sighters of a UFO coming down. Literally, they hear them, they see them, and it's a great distance because the frequency they're coming in on is very rangeable. In other words, it carries for a long way, so they know they're there.
Well, we know that all animals are very sensitive to the presence of a UFO. Linda
Right.
Zimmerman, you may
Yeah.
have heard her. She's
Oh,
a
I know
great-
Linda. Yeah, I had a talk with her about this. Yeah,
Yeah.
she did.
I love her book on that.
Yes, but if you're in the
Her book on
forest,
animal reactions.
the owls looking at them, literally, because they're there. Heavily, forested areas always will show owls. And if you're up on rocks or whatever and you see an owl fly over your head, that's a unique situation, because what's it going after except maybe a small animal? And that's why I asked you what time of year, because it's going to be small animals that they can grab, but it's got to be warm enough for them to tolerate to do it, and the wind and stuff like that, and still stay stable. So yeah, it's complicated, but simple.
So that experience was the germination of your studying into owls.
Well, two things to looking into my own UFO experiences. One, and looking into the owl thing too. I got to say, I went kind of crazy on both accounts. I really got obsessed with looking into my own experiences. And so what happened afterwards, I was hit with so many synchronicities. Like even as a little kid, I was always kind of like prone to kind of odd coincidences and such. So, but it was off the charts after this camping thing with Kristen, and I knew it. And then when I started the blog was just going to be synchronistic stories, because they make nice little blog posts.
Yeah,
and then it just went crazy, and so all the synchronicities seem to be tied into UFOs and owls. So this kind of and so I was documenting all these synchronicities, and then I was writing about UFOs and owls, and it didn't take long before people started sending me their stories, like almost right away.
Well, what is your theory on synchronicities in general? We had Rob and Trish McGregor on.
Oh, I love those two.
Thank you. I was just thinking about her. She's screaming at me right now in her ear. Tell him that if you have synchronicities, that means you had contact, and it's trying to point you at it. Literally.
Yeah. I mean, synchronicities to me are more than coincidence. They're meaningful. To me, it's like the doll you called the Almighty God, all that is kind of speaking to you like you're on the right path, because boom. It's like the red carpet rolling out in front of you.
Dots. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to say synchronicities were like a fork in the trail, right? So you have a synchronicity, you're on your path, and then there's a synchronicity. You got to follow that synchronicity, and then there's a researcher who does synchronistic research. His name is Alan Green, and he said, no, it's like being on the open ocean on a cloudy day without a compass. Oh, excuse me. But the synchronicity is your compass. So, so if it's a cloudy day, you can't see the stars, you can't see the sun, you don't know where you are, and the boat is adrift, so it's rocking and turning all directions. But in order to find your way, you need a compass. So he says the synchronicity is that compass. It is. So that one feels much more true than a sign on the path. Both of them are metaphoric, but I said it right in my blog somewhere around 2009 or so. I said, I am going to follow these synchronicities. I'm going to pay attention to them. I'm going to follow them. And I meant it. And so what basically happened is my old job, the outdoor work crumbled. It just kind of disappeared, and I put myself full time into this owl and UFO research, and I would drop the owl thing in a heartbeat if it was no longer proving to be as powerful as it has been. So synchronicities are it's really funny because there's like a lot of synchronistic research has been done. There's an author named Dr. Kirby Surprise. That's his real name. He wrote a wonderful book on synchronicity called Synchronicity, and other people and Carl Jung wrote extensively on synchronicity, and it gets a little bogged down in this kind of I don't want to say theoretical because they're using real life examples, but I'm so content to just say they're magic. Because the more I feel like sometimes if I try to overanalyze something, I lose. I get stuck. I get pigeonholed into some little corner.
You want to know what it is, really, and it's simple as it's better than magic because it's you. Your intuition is operating at first level, and synchronicities are that door opening and closing and opening and closing in front of you, driving you to go a certain way because your higher consciousness is aware of what is going on, and it will show you things intuitively. And that's what a synchronicity really is. And people who get too bogged down in magic deny the fact that it's actually you operating it in her. And you have a mental connection with her already, and it doubles up on it. You start bouncing off one another, and it becomes magnified. Your abilities are showing you what's going on. That's what that is. Literally going on.
I had so much synchronicity when, not growing up so much, but that second I started doing UFO research, it was insane.
I hear that all the time.
It makes me feel like there is guidance out there somewhere. I'm not sure if it's just me. Maybe it is because I'm broadcasting.
Yeah, well, you're getting responses. ET can hear you. The All Mind hears you. Other entities hear you all around, all over the place.
Yeah, like you said, it was off the charts. Yeah. My mouth would drop open when people would bring up UFOs right in my presence. I don't even know these people. They'd be strangers at the bank or the post office. Which
Yeah.
Ask and it will open up unto you. That is a fact. You start using your abilities and asking the questions, the answers are going to come. Always.
What prompted you to actually write a book about it? And did you expect that this book would be as wildly successful as it has been?
Well,
it's really well.
It's still selling pretty well. I mean, it's wildly successful. I'm not Stephen King, so it's not. I would love it to be more wildly successful but it's selling remarkably well. When I started writing the book, what happened was I had a lot of blog posts. Like I had blog posts about here's an owl synchronicity that happened to me. Here's another owl event that happened to me. Here's someone sent me this message. Someone sent me a letter. And so I had all of a sudden I realized I got a wealth of this. What happened? So I was at a UFO conference in 2014 and 2014. So that would have been the IUFOC when it was in Scottsdale, Arizona. I think it's in Phoenix now. Is that right? The International UFO Congress. Yeah. And I went around to everyone. There it is. Yeah. So I went around. I could do that. I had a copy of it. I was going to reach it and hold it in front of the camera. I'm going to hire you as my promotional manager. So I was asking everyone to hear their owl stories at this UFO conference. I was shameless. Who did I talk to? Oh, you know who was there? I talked at length with Christopher O'Brien and Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and both of them are gone now. Yeah. So, and they worked together a lot, Rosemary and Christopher. So, and Rosemary had wonderful stories and so, but I got some great stories from this conference. And then when I got home, I started writing. I was going to write a magazine length essay. I was just going to write a little essay. I figured I'll write a little essay and get this out of my system. And the essay it's still on my blog. It was like the length of a magazine article. And I published it on my blog. And then right away, Nick Redfern on the very first day got back to me and said, this has to be a book. You have to write a book. And I was like, oh God.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So I ended up writing a book. I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a book. And so I kind of went into it a little blindly. Like I would, if someone's going to write a book here, I would suggest, and you can back me up on this, write an outline before you really start the book. That's pretty helpful. Yeah. Yeah. So that helps a lot. I didn't have an outline when I started this thing. I just like, oh, I'll just start writing. And oh my, so I was all of a sudden, then I was, but what happened is if you look at when you get right down to it, the messengers there's a little subchapter, a little subchapter, a little subchapter, a little subchapter. So it actually was, I had hundreds of little subchapters that I just kind of wove together, and it took a long time. I did a lot of editing to make sure that worked, that these little subchapters flowed together. But but I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know what the conclusion was going to be. Oh, this is a funny story. So the original publisher was Richard Dolan. For a short little window there, he was publishing other people's books under Richard Dolan Press.
Wow.
And so Richard Dolan, like he's considered quite a nuts and bolts historian, and he I gave him a manuscript, like a manuscript in process. I said, okay, it's not finalized. And he's like, oh, like you got to do this. You're doing this. You got to do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, this is going to be, and I'm going to publish it. He was really forthright. He was like, I'm going to publish this book. I'm like, okay, great. And so this was before, this is a decade ago now. Yeah, right around a decade ago when I was actually really throwing myself into the writing process. And the ease of self-publishing wasn't quite what it is today. It was just on the dawn of it. So Rich edited the first book. And it's funny because he would call me up at night, and he would text me, and he would go, Mike, like I'm really enjoying your book. Like, when do you get to the point when you get to the conclusion and you tell me what owls mean? Like, what do the owls mean? And I was like, you're going to be really disappointed because I've been like immersed in this stuff for, years and years and years now. And I don't know what it is. And so when I did the second book, he said, Mike, yeah, I'm not letting you off the hook. You are not publishing a second book on owls and UFOs without giving some sort of reason and meaning what's behind it. You have to do that. So someone is saying, yeah, he was very excited about that book. I got to say, if there was a reason that book was successful, I think it was Rich was really enthusiastic promoting it right at the very beginning on his, I think it was really early on when he had his YouTube page and such. So, so I'm really super grateful to Rich. But in the second version, he forced me. He said, "You're not getting off the hook. You're gonna give some reasons." And I don't know if I did this the last time. Do you remember if I did this last time? It's easiest for me, and I've done this before. Can I just read like a few pages? Or it's actually about a page.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna do this here right from the book here.
Yeah, that's a treat, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So there's 4 reasons. So I don't, and let me say that I don't know what these reasons are. Okay. Why owls? On a purely intellectual level, I don't know. Yet my gut feeling gives me a glimpse into some possible answers. Here are 4 ideas on what owls might mean, each of which are followed up with a question. Number 1, owls are an alarm clock. The simplest answer would be they are here to wake us up. But wake us up to what? Number 2, owls are an archetype. They are a symbol, an image stored deep within humanity's memory bank. It's as if there's a hidden meaning locked away within our grand shared consciousness, and the owl is a key. We think in symbols, and the owl is touching us on that level. And this deeper knowing goes back to the dawn of man. But what is the hidden archetypal meaning? Number 3, owls are here to announce initiation. An initiation is a ritual, like a young Catholic receiving the Eucharist during their first Holy Communion. Owls often seem to show up just before the arrival of a UFO, as if to announce an impending ritual. Religious scholars would argue that these initiation rites are metaphoric of a profound change within the initiate. But the true believer wouldn't see the initiation as a metaphor. The change would be entirely real. But, An initiation into what? Number 4, owls are totems of the transformational experience. Seeing a UFO can transform someone. I've spoken to a lot of people who've seen strange lights in the sky, and in that moment, their entire definition of reality is altered. I've also spoken to people who have had owl sightings at such highly charged moments that it transformed their lives. But a transformation into what? So that's kind of a fuzzy, I never came up with a real answer, but that was the best I could do, and I still stand by that kind of
Well, I think that's the way to approach it. I mean, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah,
how could you?
I could probably wing it and make a good. I could speculate and sound like I knew what I was talking about, but I would just be. It's just guesswork at this point, because something's happening behind the curtain, and
humans are innately programmed to see things a certain way. We live in a physical environment, and we have physical properties in that environment and ecosystems and things like that. When we first started out on here, we were all having to survive, okay? All of us. And knowing what nature was doing around you, number one, is your best way to survive. And owls are a good bringer of information about what is happening around you. And the more you learn about them and their habits and what they do and where they go and why, they are informing you of situations that surround you. It's interesting if you think of it that way, that they're informing you also that UFOs are coming down around you as well. And they're preparing you for that, what you might call initiation or the contact. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to me to be very complicated. We just have to be more in tune. Like people say, ground yourself, get grounded, learn to walk on the earth, learn to use what that energy teaches you, feels you. It's good for your body, your mind, and your soul, consciousness. Well, so are all the animals. So are all the systems that we're in. And they are all giving us clues to who we are and how we fit in here. Okay, as well as who UFOs are, who's behind them, and how we fit in with them. And those are the questions that we really should bring. And your title, Messengers, is brilliant as far as I'm concerned, because of that.
So what was happening was people were contacting me and writing me letters. And what would happen, and this was very consistent, they would write a letter and then they would say, oh, the owl landed on a fence post. And then, the UFO happened. And then I was remembered this event that took place in my childhood or something. And then they would no longer say the owl on the fence post. They would say the messenger on the fence post was there for a reason. And then it was so right away people were, I didn't know, but I didn't prompt anyone. That's where it came from. People would just organically, consistently, one letter comes from Ohio, one letter comes from Finland, one letter comes from South America. They all call it the messenger. So I was just like, okay. The original title was going to be Messengers of the Night. Yeah. And then I got plenty of stories where they came during the day. So
there are so many animals on this planet, and many of them do kind of represent symbols of this or that. Elephants and strength, and doves and peace.
We're making
owls are so prominent.
Right. Well, they're the first. I'm telling you, an owl will show up if you're in a certain area. An owl's going to be the first one to tell you anything. But you got to remember something about animals and the planet, as far as everything is concerned. You're not just the only thing that's psychic on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So are they, and they can communicate with you on a level that if you practice, you pick up and you learn, you understand what's going on around you with them. Dolphins can communicate, whales, birds, elephants, horses, dogs,
dragonflies, hummingbirds.
Everything communicates. Yeah. It's not just that. The trees communicate as well. They have a type of rudimentary, intuitive cycle of transmission of thought. Okay. They're networked all up underneath the ground with one another, and they can put forth something that we can recognize as a message as well. We need to turn back to that and get more in tune with it. But I hope that we stop shrouding it in mystery and magic, because it's not. This is pure, unadulterated. This is the way this was built for us to use. This is a scientific method.
It's fascinating because the Native Americans are all about owls.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so all over the world, like the Irish and it's all throughout, it's all over the world. Every culture has, and yeah, so here, this is something. So when I first wrote the book, so what was happening, I said, hey, I want to hear your UFO and owl stories, and then I kind of shortened it. I want to hear your owl stories, and what happened, which I didn't expect, is that it wasn't just UFOs and owls. So there's 5. I might have said this before, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself from the last time I was on the show about a year ago, but there are 5. I'll call them modalities. One of them is owls and UFOs. Owls show up around the time of UFO contact. Wow, I got no doubt about that. Like my email inbox is just flooded with those stories. So and then
too.
yeah, and then yeah, I can imagine. So there's other things too. So people meditating will see owls.
Right.
And then and I got a lot of stories where people meditating outside, or they're meditating, and it's often there's they'll have a very strong intention about what their meditation wants to be, and the owl seems to reflect that back.
Yeah.
Psychedelics, most particularly mushrooms. I have some other examples, but psychedelics. People taking mushrooms will either have a visionary experience of a giant owl, that's obviously a hallucination due to the drug, or it will be like an owl will land. I have a story where everyone was sitting in a circle. They're all on mushrooms, and they were doing it as a kind of a ritual, a little collective ritual. And an owl landed in the middle of the circle, and they all saw it. And then the other one would be owls and shamanic initiation. When shamans are initiated, this is well understood in the community of shamans, they will see owls. I've got so many owl stories that come from shamans. And it's funny, I kind of mentioned the shaman thing in a podcast one time, and someone says who meets shamans? How do you meet a shaman? And I'm like, you write a book about owls, you're going to meet a shaman. You're going to meet a lot of shamans. So, and then the final one is owls and death. And that, if I was going to write one book, if I wanted to write a book where I never mention UFOs, but it's all about owls, it would be owls and death. Wow, I got a lot of stories. So what it tells me that
you have to do that now, of course.
Oh, there's my plate's full of I could write I got a lot of stories at this point. So owls, there's 5 modalities, and so it's UFOs, meditation, psychedelics, shamanic initiation, and death. You know what? I want the near-death experience and the out-of-body experience to be in this list. I can't find, nobody's got a story. I don't have any story.
Out of body, and I've done a lot of that out of body stuff too.
And you know what happens to some people who have had UFO contact and then have a near-death experience? They see a lot of owls, so what it tells me, and I've called these 5 events highly charged human events.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that the owl is connected to the UFO, it's that the owl is connected to these highly charged human events.
Right. Well, we're all, like I said, we're all transmitting, and they're picking up on it, and we're part of their paradigm, and they ours. We're all unified together on this planet, and they can hear, feel, see, and know that you're up to something, and they're curious enough to go look, and they will show it to you. I've never seen an owl OBE either, and I asked about it because it disturbed me. I've seen many types of animals on the other side. Never an owl, never an eagle either. Okay. And that's because some animals are so highly evolved, like eagles and owls, and they are, that when they go to the other side, they become who they originally were. And that led me to ask the next question, well, are we coming here as animals as well? And it's like, yes, we're helping one another. It's a biocircle that we're all in. And the Indian religions talk to that, and it's true. You can come back as an animal and work with humanity as well, be part of it.
Transmigration. Yep.
Yes. And so that's what's going on. And once they transmigrate back to the other side, they drop that persona and they go back to who they are. Okay. That's real interesting to me that we do that.
Very cool. Well, we need to take a station ID break. Mm-hmm. But when we come back, this is just a quick ID. I would love to hear an owl death story.
Oh, I got lots of them.
But before we do, I just want to remind you all that you are watching The Light Gate. I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. Our guest tonight is Mike Clelland. He's the author of the book The Messengers and many other books. We are so happy that you have joined us tonight, episode 83. We've talked a lot about how Mike got involved in this field, some of his own experiences. We've touched a little bit on some of the owl experiences and what they might mean. Still got a lot more to talk about. We're just the first hour in, one more hour to go. But before we do, let me remind you that we are streaming on several platforms. We are live on 107.7 FM and 105.3 on the United Paranormal Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. 107.7 FM, 105.3 from the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. We're on Roku. So if you have Roku, check that out. We're on Rumble. Yay. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. So lots of platforms. Huge shout out to Carnation for supporting us. We love you. So thank you very much. Carnation Monday it is. So we're very happy to have you on board. And let me see what else. I guess that's it for the station ID. So yeah, let's get back to this whole interesting connect. You got me intrigued. I would love to read a book about owls and how that relates to death, because death is a subject that people don't talk about, and we really should, because we're all going to go through it.
We talk about the ultimate transformation, right? I mean, that's like that's like, yeah. So, and as recently I've been doing not so much research. I guess it is research, but just reading books, and I've done some interviews on my podcast with people who've had the near-death experience. So, and I've been doing it for years now, as far as reading the books, and there's a lot of good podcasts on the near-death experience. So I'm completely at peace with knowing or feeling strongly that like I trust these stories. And so there's
the near-death books by Charles Moody saved my life. Honestly, after my mom died, I clung to those. I'm like, oh my gosh, I learned so much.
And so I'll tell us. This is an owl story I've told many times. This happened to me, and so my mother died in 2013. So that's 11 years ago, and I was at her bedside with my sister. So my sister was on one side of the bed and my mother was on the other side. My mother had been suffering terribly from Alzheimer's for the previous bunch of years. And so the last couple of years of her life were pretty sad, and she was very frightened a lot. It was really hard on the family. So when she passed, my father had died a year earlier. And so we were at her bedside. My brother was not in the room with us, but he was nearby. So we were all taking turns to be at her bedside. She had an aneurysm and she just never woke up. So there was about 4 days there where we just had a constantly. So it was a completely peaceful, gentle thing. And it was really like, I'm not the first person who has held their parents' hand at that moment, but it was really powerful. And how sad my mother was, it wasn't it was a relief for everyone. And I feel strongly it was a relief for my mother too. Now, I was well immersed. 2013, I was totally immersed in the research at that point. And while I was at my sister's house, my sister lived close to the hospice care site where my mother was. And so I was just in my sister's spare bedroom, and I would come downstairs in the morning, we'd drink coffee, and I would go through my email and I would read these owl stories to her. And she was like, she had no idea what I was talking about. And he could tell it was like, oh my God, there's owls. What are you talking about? Mike, what are you doing? And so I was like, oh. And then my brother did not want to hear about it at all. He did not want to hear about it. He didn't, it was like, kind of like I'm the youngest. I was always kind of the goofy kid that drew cartoons and stuff like that. So I was easy to dismiss. And there I was 50 years old, and they were kind of, easy to, so when this happened it happened at about 3 a.m. when my mom passed, and the next day was just like, well, we're all tired, and it was just like taking naps, trying to get some sleep, and then trying to do simple things like the obituary and funeral arrangements and calling friends. And so at the end of the day, we're on the back porch of my sister's house, and she lives in this pretty spot in the South. She's in North Carolina, and we're on this big back deck. And my sister's best friend lives across the street. Her name is Ruthie. She has given me permission to use her name. And Ruthie was sitting with us. and we're on this kind of back deck, kind of southern couch thing, and Ruthie's sitting facing us. So I'm sitting on the couch, I'm in the middle, and my brother's on one side, my sister's on the other, and Ruthie says, my sister's name is Jean and my brother's name is Jim. So she goes, Jim, Jean, Mike, I know there is an afterlife. And I know because of an experience I had with an owl. Oh my word, my sister literally like did the thing like, owls. And my brother gave me this look like, you paid Ruthie to do this. He gave me this look like he was so suspicious of me. And I was like, well, and poor Ruthie could see like, what did I just say? And I was like, oh. So I was like, Ruthie, you don't know, but I've been doing this research on owls and how they are connected to, among other things, death and paranormal events. And I said UFOs, but I was like, I almost didn't want to say it, and UFOs too. So, and then she said, but I want to hear your story. So she says, when I was grieving my father's passing, I would walk the nature trail around this neighborhood. And my sister and I would walk the nature trail, and I would walk her dog. She would go to be with my mom, and I would walk the dog for her around this nature trail. So I knew the nature trail, and it just circled the woods around the little housing complex. So, and then she said, and every day I was grieving my father's passing, and I was walking this trail trying to find some peace. And every day I would pass an owl. And then one day I'm walking down the path and the owl hoots, and I stand and look at this owl. It was in the same spot. And I thought, owls don't come out during the day. Mm-mm. And then she looked at this owl and said, are you my daddy? And she said, at that moment, all my grieving alleviated. And the owl flew away. And she never saw it again. And she said, and I know that she was Southern. She said, I know my daddy is in a better place now because of that experience. I know my daddy is safe and at peace because of that owl. And she did not say she thinks, she did not say she suspects. She said, I know my daddy's at peace. Now, this is my brother and sister had no idea what I was doing. Ruthie is the most believable. She was not. I had the single best witness I could have had for both my brother and sister. So they back engineering this whole story. I was like, it took me a while. I was like, this happened from my brother and sister. So they would realize that my research is not like I'm not. I'm actually realizing something that researching something real. So that's a good example that's a long story I just told, but that's a good example of the power of these stories. The consistency I'm finding is, it's not like, this is with one of the patterns, but this is the strongest pattern. Owls are showing up after a parent has passed. And I got a lot of stories where people talk to the owl as if it is their parent.
Wow.
And then their grieving is relieved. I have one story where a woman, she had talked to her cousin, and her mother had died, and she talked to her cousin. Her cousin is named Lonnie, and she says, I'm like, my mom is like, I miss my mom so much. And Lonnie's like, you'll find a sign. There's going to be a sign. Just wait. There'll be a sign. So on Thanksgiving, which is coming up here in a few days, on Thanksgiving Day, she walks in the garage. She's in Florida. She walks in the garage, and there's an owl on the shelf. She said the whole garage was her husband's stuff. I only had one shelf in this garage. That's the shelf the owl landed on. The garage door was closed. She didn't know how the owl got in. And so she gets on the phone and she calls Lonnie, her cousin, who she just had the conversation with. Like, Lonnie, there's an owl here in the garage. And she's talked to the owls as if it's her mom. And she would say, Mom, Lonnie's here on the phone. Cousin, like your nephew Lonnie's here. He's on the phone right now. And it was really powerful and beautiful. And then they went out to Thanksgiving dinner, and they came back, and the owl's still on the shelf. And she went in and said, Mom, I love you. Thank you for coming back. I love you. I got the message. You don't need to stay here. Like, basically, like, you can go. And the owl flew off and flew away. This is so consistent, these stories.
I wonder if it's the person's spirit influencing rather than, you know
Can
what I
be.
mean?
Yes.
Because people
I don't
talk
want
about
to. I
seeing
don't.
butterflies.
Oh, hummingbirds, butterflies. Yeah, yeah.
Cardinals, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, red cardinals. Wow, red cardinals. Yeah.
Yeah. We live in a, that was a synchronicity for you, by the way. Ruthie provided you a giant synchronicity for you.
I
Yeah,
know
that one.
that. Yeah, I'm fully
That's
aware of that.
complete guidance.
Like,
I'm like, wow.
fine, okay. All right. It is as Native Americans will tell you, or indigenous people, because I'm indigenous from here and Swaria. Um, when you're not listening, when you're not actually using your abilities outwardly, and you're not really that connected, your loved one will use someone or something else to get a message to you. They'll follow you
Mhm.
around till they find that opportunity. And an owl is a very psychic animal. So are birds. All birds are psychic, and other animals too. I mean, it doesn't have to be that. It could be a bear. It could be a fox. I mean, it's strange things happen with this. But animals tend to be the messengers for loved ones during great grief or tragedy or whatever, or happiness, joy,
Mhm.
even. It is weird how that goes on, but it's us communicating with them, with those on the other side as well. And it's their way of showing us, we're here with you, we're around. And these are your clues. There you go. You know?
It is interesting. You know, I once had an out of body experience, and I'm reading all these books about out of body experiences, and all these people have guides guiding them around. I'm like, well, shoot, I'm alone out here. And someone said, well, you look behind you. Your guide is behind you. So I went out of body and went, oh, I remember this. Look behind. I looked behind me. There was a darn coyote
Ooh, that's a
grinning
good
at
one.
me. And I looked at it and I chased this darn thing. I tried so hard to catch that thing. I tried it several times over and over. I'd turn back, there would be this coyote. And I kept getting this kind of shamanistic Native
Mm.
American impression from it, but never could get close to it. It was very wily and trickstery. I'm like,
That's totally. You know what? This is interesting. So in this book, I quote. I had an experience. I quote Christopher O'Brien. I sent a bunch of emails to him and basically said, "Here's what happened. Like I just had this experience." So I had, and I think I might have. I'm sure I talked about this, but I'll tell one part of a big, long, complex set of stories. I'll just tell you one part because it. If we get pulled down the wrong path, you won't be able to shut me up. So, I was sleeping out under the stars. This is coming back from the IUFOC, International UFO Congress. That was when I was all obsessed with the owl thing or initially all obsessed with the owl thing. I still am in a way, but that was the conference where I asked everyone, "Have you had any owl experiences? Have you had an owl experience?" I was writing this stuff down furiously and get phone numbers, and so I had it was so rich, the stories I was hearing at this one conference. Now, on the drive home, the conference was in Arizona. I lived in Idaho. I had to drive through Utah to get home. So beautiful drive. I love driving through Utah. So I do a lot of outdoor work. So I had a big, thick sleeping bag, my winter sleeping bag for my winter trips, huge. It's a big, thick pad. So I slept out under the stars on this magical night near the town of Beaver, Utah. And I woke up in the middle of the night and there was a round structure on a hill nearby. And I looked at this thing and I said, that looks just like a landed flying saucer. And I was like, oh, like if I feel like I've had over my life, I've had little psychic flashes and I kind of intuitive, like I trust my intuition. I was like, if that was a flying saucer, I would know it because I'd feel some UFO vibe. And I looked at this thing and I was like waiting for and I was like, nope, nothing. Somebody got a big house up on that hill. So I rolled over and went to sleep. Now, a little while later, I don't know, sometime in the night, I woke up again and there was a coyote howling right near me, howling right near me. And I sat up and I looked around and it was like, there was no moon and there was lots of stars and there was sagebrush around. It's typical like Western, like the cowboy movie environment. And, the round building was still on the hill. And I'm like, this coyote is so loud. Like I've slept out a lot in the West and I've heard coyotes off in the distance plenty. I have never, ever, it felt like I could have taken a little dog biscuit and just gone, and it could have caught it in its mouth. And I never saw it. In retrospect, I just dismissed it like, what a cool. So in the moment, I was like, wow, what a cool experience. What a neat experience. What a powerful experience. But in retrospect, and there's some other reasons why, and I feel strongly that this was what would be an audio version of a screen memory. Like this was a projected sound effect from I'm going to say the UFO occupants, because later under hypnosis, like, wow, there was a wallop of a story that emerged from that round structure on the hill. And I'm certain I talked about that 3 years ago, or excuse me, last year when we talked.
Yeah, I think you did.
I'll tell it again if you want, but wow, is it so?
Yeah, I'm hearing it. Yeah.
But so the coyote. Oh, and then I contacted Christopher O'Brien, and he talked about the trickster energy of the because he spent a lot of time in that part of southern Utah. You know, the trickster energy among the natives in that culture. So it was like the landscape was giving me the appropriate spirit totem. You know,
Yeah.
For where I was on the map. I think other times, like you get, like I'm Scottish Danish, so there's other times I would get some synchronicity that might have like a lineage to my who I am. But this felt like it was welling up from the landscape, this event. And I have no way to know. It certainly could have been a real coyote nearby, but I am open to the idea that it was an audio screen.
Could have been. They could have gave you that memory.
Well, either way, it's clearly connected because it's all happening at the same time. So, you know what
And
I mean?
and just exactly how does the coyote arrive at the appropriate moment? I mean, you were in your out of body experience. You know where
I have
go on,
seen,
please.
Yeah, I've only seen animals like coyotes, bears, and stuff like that when I'm wanting to see them on the other side. Only. I've never seen one on its own coming at me in any direction for any reason whatsoever. And it's weird. I know what my Indian totem is. I'm Ostahatchee, okay? And it's a wolf. I'm a wolf. That's my totem. I'm a wolf. But I also have heavy duty, Laplander. I'm Swedish, okay? And my totem is a crow, a big old crow, big crow. And both those animals seek me out. Here where I'm living now, it's always a crow. It's coming and talking to me all the time. It's like, hey, I have things to tell you. And it'll show up and it'll hang out with me, and they call me a certain way. They don't go, ka, ka, ka. They go, ura, ura, ura. That means they want to talk to me, okay? And I've always wondered, how the heck when did that get decided? Did I decide this? Did something else decide this? I went crazy for a while over it. And I found out that it's genetic. It goes all the way back to our first experiences and everything we experienced in the before. And it travels with you, and it describes the nature of your consciousness, which kind of fits me out pretty good, because I can be extremely menacing when I want to. I'm a Valkyrie, okay, warrior, and but the crow is very intelligent, and that smacked me too.
Yeah, they just found out the crow is far more intelligent than they thought. There's this whole new thing where they can do some weird abstract thinking, which they already knew, but they found out it's much more prominent than they thought.
Oh, they can solve puzzles and things like that, like really complex puzzles.
They teach the children stuff that the children have never been exposed to. They're much more intelligent than people.
They can also talk like a human. You can hear them use words. They will.
So if someone's mean to a crow, and a crow like
tell their children,
kicks a crow, then they'll have babies, and then the parent will die, and the babies will meet that same person. They've somehow figured out a way. I don't know how they tested this, but they have generational vengeance, and they'll play tricks on people.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you give them presents, they'll give you presents back. There's all kinds of stuff.
You feed them, they'll try to feed you back. Yeah, it's crazy. They'll wake you up.
Going back to weird animal stories, out of body, I've had a number of them, but one of my early out of body was I was looking at this herd of buffalo and just I'm like, oh, look, there's a white one. This darn white buffalo comes running towards me and pressing itself up against me. I had no idea white buffalo was a symbol in Native American culture.
Yeah.
No idea. So when I read that, I've got all chills. I still will never forget holding my hands against this white buffalo. Like, what are you trying to do? It's trying to go inside me. Like, stop. I still have no idea what that means, but it was really significant.
Maybe that's your totem. Seriously?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I could have like 20 totems if I were to add up all these weird dreams I've had.
Me too. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm like, I got a pretty good idea what my totem is. So.
Okay.
White buffalo
Go on.
It's on the cover
Yeah.
of the book. Yeah. It's like, I mean, I have so many owl experiences. I can't.
Yeah.
I
buffalo
listen
is
every
also
night. Every night.
Yeah. White animals tell you that something big is coming, that there's a change coming. Okay. All white animals. And buffaloes, especially white buffalo. So that might have been what that was about. So, yeah.
And that's something I address in the book. And it's not true of every culture, but in some native cultures that there's a white animal would be a spiritual totem, and then a brown or a white owl would be a spiritual totem, and a brown or gray owl would be something more pragmatic, like something pragmatic you need to do in your life. And I get a better job, like say thank you to that person you snubbed, those kinds of normal things, as opposed to a spiritual thing, which would be more represented by the white owl. That's just something that shows up in.
I know I told this story before, probably on the show you were on, so I'll be brief. But I was once so upset because someone had betrayed me bad, and I was mad.
Oh, I wouldn't notice.
Third story balcony in Canoga Park, in my condo, and I was just seething. This red-tailed hawk comes and lands right in front of me on the rail, and looks right at me. I've never seen a hawk that close. I mean, this thing was a foot tall, and all the, like you described, all the emotion just drained out of me. I'm like, oh, I am now at peace, and it flew off.
Ooh,
Shook my anger away.
I'm convinced these experiences have happened all throughout human history, and I think that for the last many generations, like a short little chapter of human history, that we have been told not to believe these stories. We have been told not to treat these as real life events, and that and now we have the advent of the internet, where people are sharing these stories in a way that would have been impossible just a few years ago. And what I'm finding is that people are very, very, very open to these kinds of animal events. I mean, it's not just owls that I'm getting. I receive a lot of different animal type stories, and I'm convinced that there's a reason for these ancient mythologies, that the coyote is a trickster, and that the owl is a messenger from other realms. Because it's been happening to people all throughout human history.
You got to do a book on all the animal stories that you've gotten.
But most of them are owls and other birds. So, but there's a few outlying ones, and I tell some other ones that are not necessarily owl stories in the book. Yeah. So
okay.
In the books, but a lot of but birds are certainly associated with death. I have one story. This is one that it's a lot of stories are really hard to tell because they're so long and complicated. So when I do a podcast, some of them I can tell a little quicker. This woman gets a hold of me. She's a reporter, and she is working on they were having a memorial in the town square of this town, and I don't want to say where it was, but a civic leader had died, and they were having a memorial for the civic leader who had a big presence in this town. And so it's nighttime. They're at this. It was a lot of people there, and they were at this park. And a white owl, a barn owl, lands on a lamppost in the middle of the park, like a little kind of, Norman Rockwell little park in a town. And she sent me pictures of this, and she said, I can't put this in the article because it's too weird, but I can tell you. So what happened was people would walk up to all of a sudden people or no one had to tell them. They just stood in line, and there's an owl on the lamppost, and the first guy up ahead says, John, I can't remember the guy's name, but he says, John, like, you were so great. It was such a joy that you were my good friend, and I feel honored and blessed to have known you, and I really am grateful that I have this final chance to say goodbye. And then the next person would come up, and there's an owl on a lamppost, and people would ever wait in line and talk to the owl as if it was
This is a real owl.
Real owl. I got pictures of it. It's like a little, it's like maybe this big, and it's a barn owl. Barn owls aren't necessarily that big. And this is so consistent. Oh, like here, I'll tell one. This is one that
when you got an owl. Literally, think about that.
Pardon?
Who needs a medium when you have an owl?
Well, you're having direct communication, so oh, this is so funny. This is a funny one. I had outpatient surgery, so I had knee surgery, and I was at this clinic, and it was very minor, and they gave me a Valium, and I got super talkative, and so there they are, and they're down, like I got just local anesthesia, and I'm talking. They're like, just keep them talking, and they're asking me questions. So what are you doing, Mike? What are you working on? I'm like, oh, working on this book. What's the book about? Oh, it's about owls, and so it's like, oh, owls, and I did this thing where I would. Like I knew just like, do I mention UFOs? Because if you mention the UFO thing, you're open up a can of worms. So I said, oh, it's about owls. And so I told this story. I told a couple of the death stories that I'm just telling you just right now, where the owl shows up as after a loved one has passed. And you could tell they just like, oh my God, he's so loopy. And so they finished up the procedure, and I left the office. I had to be driven home because I couldn't drive on Valium, and the doctor said, hey, if anything happens, like just get back to me. And so later that afternoon and that early evening, my leg just blew up. It turned black. It just blew up, and it was like, oh my God, something wrong. Something really bad's going on here. So I got hold of the doctor and said, okay, you told me to. Said, okay, get to come to the emergency room. So I had someone drive me to the emergency room. The doctor meets me there, and she says, so I went into surgery, and there was just internal bleeding anyway. So I was fine, but she said, you were right to come to the emergency room. So she did the surgery on my knee. She had done surgery on my knee, then like lunchtime, and then there it was dinner time, and she's doing the second round of surgery on my knee, and then like before I went under, she said, you know what happened after you left the office?
Uh-oh.
The receptionist said, without any, like, I didn't talk to the receptionist at all, except to sign in. I didn't ever mention owls to the receptionist. Like, as soon as I left, and then they came out, and then just some workaday stuff with the receptionist. Receptionist told the doctor, you know what happened to me last night? An owl landed on my back porch, and my dog had just died. And I love that dog. I just feel so lost without my dog. I went out there. I stood on the back porch and talked to this owl as if it was my dog. You know, I said, oh, Buster, like, I loved you so much. You were the greatest dog. I'm so glad you came back to visit me. So I could tell she thought I was nuts when I told her this story. And then she said, you were right. It happened 3 minutes after I walked out the door.
Wow.
Holy smokes.
That's very cool. That's totally cool.
Well, pets do survive. I've met pets on the other side many times. They can actually talk. they will say hello and like, whoa.
Through OBE experiences.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh.
Yeah. Well,
I know a lot of mediums.
Yeah, some of them are waiting for you to pass, and they'll stay with you the whole way through. I have a service dog that's still with me, and I had a quick, drop off. And when I looked down as it was happening to me, she was right there looking up at me like, hey, you see me? And I'm like, oh my God, it's Tippy, and I jerked myself back and got help. Okay. And I thought, oh my God, she's still with me. She passed like 4 years before that. How the heck, and I started talking to her all the time, even though I couldn't exactly see her. I started talking to her, and then every now and then she would like manifest. I'd see her and I'd talk to her then. And I think that people could do that as well. If you're seeing owls and you're able to communicate, your loved ones are trying really, really hard to communicate with you when that's happening. And I think it would behoove us all to try to have that conversation on our own.
It would be very interesting to see what's going on from the other side perspective.
Yeah. So some people say when they're having lots of visits by owls, they'll say, "What do I do?" And I'm like, ask why you're there. Just say like, I respectfully ask why you're here. Oh, and I have told that to people all the time. And it's get back to me if anything happens. And wow, I had some direct feedback from that. Yeah, or they get the direct feedback and then they share it.
We don't have a whole lot of questions in chat, but because people haven't I guess they're enthralled. What you're saying, there are definitely a lot of
Oh,
activity.
why do owls fly so silent? So
This is a
owls
good-
fly silently because an owl looks like it's big and poofy, right? They look like they're big and fluffy, or like they look like big strong things. They're in the middle, but in all that, they're these skinny little birds. They don't look like much.
Dolly
I've
has
seen.
talked about this. Yeah.
Yeah, they have really bloody long legs, and all those feathers cover everything. And if you pull their feathers up, they have this little teeny round body like this, and these long legs.
Yeah.
That swivels around.
So you can.
It's like, oh
I've been to. They wouldn't let me do it, but I went to an owl sanctuary, and they would push, and it would just go right through the feathers, and way in there was their body. So that is a baffling. So when they fly, their feathers are specially designed.
Right.
Yeah. Their feathers have feathers on them, kind of.
Right. They have little feathery feathers on their feathers, and it's their flight feathers, and it muffles all the sound they make. And there's a reason for that. Their hearing is acute, and so are the animals that they hunt. Okay. And they can hear them coming. So they've developed a silent flight, so they don't warn them they're on their way. That's why.
When owls are in flight, they can fly through the forest in complete darkness.
Right.
They can see fine. The owl eyes are attuned to the darkness. They see fine in what we would think is complete darkness. They fly through the branches. They fly. So they are flying silently. And as in flight, they are listening.
Right.
So they can hear the mouse 3 feet under the snow, or the mouse, most of their diet is mice, rustling in the grass in what would be complete darkness, but they hear it in flight, which I think is remarkable. So it's not like they're sitting on a tree listening for mice. They can do it in
I don't
flight.
know. It depends on the territory, because in Florida, they don't have the cold. Okay. And owls will eat not just mice, they'll eat rats, they'll eat snakes,
Sure.
frogs, and things like that. And those are all visible. They can see them. And they do hunt during the day sometimes because of that, because of where they're at. So it's that unbelievable hearing that they have, and the concave of their face with their feathers focusing that hearing to their ears.
So, so it's basically like two ears pointing forward. Yeah.
Inward to that parabolic dish that they've got in their face. And it's amazing to me that they do that. They're one of the only animals on this planet that have that ability, literally, to be.
Well, that brings up the next question, which says, I want to know if there's footage of owls making a 360-degree head turn. Some speculated it's a shape-shift move. It's not, right? I mean, they can literally turn 270.
They can turn 270 degrees. They can turn around, and then they and you know what they have? This is funny. They have this is like a recent discovery. They have the arteries that go up their neck have like a little bubbly bladder, like a little balloon kind of shape. And what happens? So when they turn their head all the way around, it shuts off the blood, right? Because it pinches the arteries, so they can't look behind them for too long. And then when they straighten out, the blood is in a little balloon, and then it pushes up into their brain. So they have especially designed arteries to make up for the fact that there's poor blood flow when they are turned.
Right. And they don't do it for very long. They're very quick. They go whoop, whoop, like that, because if we lost our blood to our brain for even half a second, we'd go, you'd pass out, and that bulb shoots it up into their head. You're exactly right. And gives. I
can't remember how it is, whether it's above or below, or somehow but it makes up for the. So exactly. When our eyeballs, we have round eyeballs in a round eyeball socket in our skull, and we can, here, I'm going to do this here, but I can look right and left, right? Mm-hmm. Owls can't do that. They are locked forward, and their eyes are cylinder shaped like this. They get like shaped in a cylinder, probably half this size, and they can't move their eyes. So when it's funny, and now I'm all persnickety. There's like cartoons where owls look around. And they can't do that. They get but that's the reason they have what's called that eerie head mobility, and that's almost like seeing it's like seeing a cyborg robot or something like that when you see them do that in the wild.
And it's mostly just to make sure that what's behind them isn't going to get them. They're constantly aware of what's going on behind them as well as in front, and they do have predators. Hawks prey on owls as well. And it's
very territorial, yeah.
Now I'm thinking about how prominent owls are in literature and advertising. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a
This is funny. I worked at the ad agency that did that commercial. I was too young, but that was it was called WB Donor out of Southfield, Michigan. Did that commercial with the Tootsie
Those are
Pop.
still coming up on our TV.
So
Yeah,
I have a direct relationship by
Wow.
profession to that commercial. That was a long time ago. So I didn't draw the commercial, but
Synchronicity. I can't believe I mentioned that. Because,
yeah.
but also it's in, of course, Harry Potter, Clash of the Titans, Woodsy the Owl,
Yeah,
help
well,
Woodsy
that's
spread the word.
Athena. That was Clash of the Titans. Was Athena? There's an actress that played Athena, and she has an owl as a totem. I mean, like in sculptures and stuff. It's often on her wrist, and I think in the Clash of the Titans movie there was a real owl, and then I think it was actually a barn owl in the movie, and though in the folklore it would have been what's called a little owl, which is actually in the guidebook to the world's owls. It's a Mediterranean owl called the little owl, and its name is, I think I'm going to mess this up, Athena noctura, which means
Athena's
night. So it's a night owl, Athena at night. So so Harry Potter, the owl is a messenger all throughout the mythologies in the world, and in Harry Potter, the owl delivers the mail. It's a messenger. It's perfect. So it's the ancient mythology, right? Yeah. And J.K. Rowling has owl right in her name, but I don't. That's
all right. That's true.
Yeah.
Never thought of that.
ROWL. Yeah. So I did, but I don't think it means that. I don't think it means much, but it is. I love saying that when Harry Potter comes up.
How ironic. Okay. Wow.
That is funny. I've not heard of this. Have you discovered why there's an owl in the $1 bill?
Yes, I write about that in the Messengers. There's an owl. It's so this is a tricky one. So the owl, it's on, I don't know, well, I don't have a $1 bill. So on the back side of the $1 bill, and if you look at the back $1 bill, you can need a magnifying glass or really good glasses. There is a little teeny owl on the back side on the right upper corner. There's a 1, and then the owl is peeking up over there's like a crescent shape that is kind of framing the 1, and it's just peeking up. There's this little head that peeks up. Now, if you look around, there's like a detailing in the $1 bill. If you look around, that shape is repeated. So the $1 bill, I think I've got this right. The $1 bill, there was a revamping of the money that was done in Teddy Roosevelt. When Teddy Roosevelt was president, they re-updated the money, and that's essentially the exact same money we have now. So that with George Washington on the quarter and everything. So, but that little owl is on the $1 bill. Now, let's turn the clock back about 2,500 years. They're the single most important unit of monetary, like the first real coin was called the owl, or the owlie, the little owl. And there was a 5 drachma Greek coin that was at the center of all commerce. And it had an owl on one side and it had Athena on the other side. So on the owl side, it had a crescent moon, and it had a sprig of olive leaves on the back. So the crescent moon is obviously symbolizing night, and the sprig of olive leaves at the time might have meant like valor in battle, as far as of the Greek coin. And recently, the euro used that same image front and back on their 5 euro coin. They used the owl and Athena front and back. They do a little commemorative coin. So now you turn that. So supposedly, Teddy Roosevelt kept a 5 drachma ancient owl coin in his pocket all the time he was in the White House. The money was minted. There is a tiny owl. It is next to a crescent. So the crescent moon on the coin, the owl is next to a crescent, and then that crescent is ornamented by olive leaves and olives. So it's an owl, a crescent, and olive leaves and olives. So it's on both the $1 bill. And at the time, the 5 drachma coin was
That's right.
was like the
Yeah.
single unit that everyone understood and recognized. If you wanted to think about money, you talked about the 5 drachma coin. Now, present day, if you want to, well, who knows, it's probably whatever Bitcoin or something now, but presently, if you want to think about the how Earth defines money, you would picture the $1 bill. So it's still there. It's still there. The ancient mythology is with us present day. That was, I kind of got, that was, I probably told you more than you needed to know.
I interviewed a lady who was a contactee for sure, had a major, saw like a 4-foot owl. I told this story, which was clearly a screen memory, but she moved into this Native American family and they did not like owls. And here is a question from Cliff Olinger. Isn't it true that owls are represented as bad omens in a lot of cultures?
They sure are, yeah. Especially the Native Americans, especially the Southwest Indians. Up in the north, I'm up by Seattle. They don't have the same lore here. They're pictured prominently at the top of the totem poles and stuff here. But so now here, this is so I'm very subjective. Am I doing that right? I'm objective. Yeah, so I'm a subjective researcher. Like I'm putting myself into my own research. I'm pulling on threads that I and people are coming to me with their owl stories knowing full well I'm doing UFO research. But what I have not, I found very few where owls preceded like a dark event, often a death. So sometimes, I mean, people die. So an owl visitation doesn't make the owl. So but it's very rare. It's the owl stories that I'm coming up with that are showing up are often very hopeful and very heartening. And it is in the lore that owls are sinister or they are a message of doom but I have very, very little evidence in my files. People that certainly could be happening out there and people simply aren't sharing those stories.
Egyptian hieroglyphs, owls prominently display in hieroglyphs.
True.
Have you studied that? Yeah.
It's the sound of the M, and they also the symbol of night. So
exactly.
There's symbolic language, the hieroglyphs. So owls mean night, and they also mean the sound of M. There's a couple other things too. But and it's the only being that looks, so all the other animals are in profile, birds and stuff like that. And
owls look dead at.
You had to mention that J.K. Rowling had owl in her name, because now I'm thinking of words with owl in it, like howl, which is kind of an interesting and spooky
knowledge.
word.
Knowledge.
Scowl.
Knowledge as well. Scowl bowl. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And this amazes me about owls. And I said it a little bit before, I'm going to repeat this. Owls are not intelligent creatures. They live in the moment. They're extremely curious, and that might make them appear intelligent because they're so quiet, but they're not. I mean, the services have tried to use them in things and they couldn't train them to do anything. We had owls in the zoo. We couldn't train them to do anything. Their memory is like, bye, see ya. Just they're happy, and they're curious, but that's about it. Owls don't have a modicum of intelligence upon them at all. And it amazes me because they're associated with wisdom. And it blows my brain.
Well, they look smart, right? They have a very regal stance,
right.
So they look smart. And it was the so the myth is that they have the myth. So part of the reason they're associated with Athena, who is the goddess of wisdom, is supposedly, and there's no way anyone knows this, but the folklore is that the owls lived in the Parthenon, the Palace Athena, and it was the little owl, these little cute, they were tiny. There's these little teeny owls. And those, they lived in there, and somehow that got associated with and so
maybe they were warning her when stuff was coming at her. Think about it. She was a huntress as well, just like Diana. They all could hunt, all of them. And I think maybe in the palaces like that they were like watchdogs and first alerts.
Dolly, have ETs ever said anything about owls to you?
Oh yeah, they say everything about every animal there is. They are extremely interested in every animal in the entire universe, and they're kind of the self-made zookeepers of everything in the universe, and they know everything there is to know about every single animal.
Yeah, but that's why I'm asking.
And they find out fascinating as heck because they're good hunters. They're good hearers. They hear unbelievably well.
They can see into the dark. Yeah, see into
that's right.
What we would call complete darkness. Yeah.
ETs have eyesight like owls do, just so you know. Hawk-eyed and owl-eyed are two important themes that you need to look into, because owls see in ultraviolet light. And all the ET grays see in ultraviolet light. They don't have the lens in their eyes like we do that, pulls us into stereo color or the color palette that we're looking at. And literally, that's why they wear the black lenses, because it protects them from the light range that we have, from our sun while they're here or coming at us for any other reason. And they have that in common with them. There are also ETs that are bird-like, okay, and they have the same thing going on, a hawk and owl-eyed, and it's a genetic trait that we all have. We all have the same genes, all of us. You have genes from owls in your body as well, okay, and we all dime out differently all over the place, but we're genetically related to everything, and it's they understand that.
Anne.
Yes.
Ann Carter, I know Ann.
Oh, wow.
Hi.
She's having interactions with a mockingbird.
Yeah, they're cool.
We'll have to hear about that. All right. Well, we've just got a few moments left. I do want to bring up, here's your book, The Messengers, but also wanted to mention
That's the memoir.
Hidden Experience as well.
Cool.
And of course, this book that is your novel. So this is inspired a lot by what the research you've been doing, right?
So the research, when I was in the act of doing the research, I was, and you must know what I'm talking about. Both of you must know. Someone tells you a story and they kind of say, have you ever heard this story? And I'm like, I haven't heard that story exactly, but whoa, have I heard a lot of stories with that same flavor and mood. Like, I feel like I've developed a sort of sixth sense to know, like, oh, this is a big one. You got to pay attention to this one. And so I actually, this was originally going to be a comic book. I was an illustrator for a long time, and I wanted to do this as a comic book, like a full-on graphic novel. And I realized it was going to be too much work. So
did you do the cover, by the way?
I did the cover, and the cover is, I did. That's hand lettering too. You know what's funny? Do I have this here? I don't have it with me right here. I updated the cover recently, and it's got a little more pop art kind of.
I like the cover.
Hand lettering. Well, I wanted it to have it's got a little bit of a nod to the comic book genesis of the story. So, but it's a book about UFOs. I never mentioned the word UFO once. There's near-death experiences in it. I never mention near-death. I never say out-of-body experience. But there's a lot of that in there. And
Very cool.
It's fun because you get to explore ideas in a different way than a nonfiction book.
It was actually really fun to write it because of exactly that.
Is this book on Amazon now?
Oh yeah.
All right.
It's easy to find. The Unseen.
For those of you who can't see it, it's called The Unseen, a novel. Because we've got a radio audience who can't see the images. It's a beautiful cover, though.
Oh, thank you. And you know what's funny? Because see the little banner in the corner that says a paranormal thriller with a skull in it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have that banner in there, that little ribbon, it looks like a cowboy story. It looks like a Louis L'Amour book or something like that, So it's like, it needed that little thing that says a paranormal thriller to make it.
Yeah, we're not supposed to judge a book by the cover, but the cover matters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know.
Speaking of which, the covers for both the other books are really beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, I drew them all. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh wait, this one's so tiny. Here we go. The Messengers. I mean, that just really brings across the flavor of the stories you're telling.
Yeah, it's funny. So, someone called me on this, and he says, "Owl synchronicity and the UFO abducting." He says, "You don't get abducted by UFOs; you get abducted by aliens. So that's not right." And I was like, "I don't know. It's been like 9 years. You're the first person that mentioned it, so I never thought of it." And, but
you're going inside the UFO.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, some people won't even use the word abductee. They're like, no.
Oh, you know who sent me a letter when the book came out was Leo Sprinkle. Sent me a letter, and he was pretty firm that I should not have used the word abductee. He kind of gave me I could imagine him being. He was.
I like him. Never met him.
I love him too. I love him enormously. I'm not. It was. But it was. I was like, ooh, I didn't. I recognized that he was a college professor for like 50 years or something. So I could see him being like he was.
I'm very excited for that. Just to tell you something. Our cover art is usually done by Kiosara, Preston's.
That's your sister.
Yeah. Okay. But inside,
sister-in-law, excuse me.
Right. Inside, I'm asking you in public right now, we talked about it before. We switched phone numbers. I'm going to have you draw Talata for me, okay, and a couple other things for
Great.
inside for symmetry too. And I'm excited about it because I'm watching your art right now, and it's like exactly this is like synchronicity for me. You know, it's like this just we're at that point in the book where we're starting to think about it, and poof, there you are. You know, it amazes me. So it's
I'd
going
love to do an interview with you and just seeing your art. Don Schmidt, you know, the Roswell guy, he's an artist too.
Oh, interesting. You know, oh, wow.
He did art for the UFOs magazine, the International UFO Reporter, I think it was called. I found that out. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I started looking at his art. I'm like, he's good.
You know what happened? You know what happened? I was a professional illustrator. I worked in advertising, and I did magazine work, and I did all kinds of illustrations. I used to, as a little kid, like I was doing posters and stuff like that as like a 12-year-old. And then about a decade ago, I started working on these books. And for the most part, with very few exceptions, I have done zero artwork in over a decade. Zero.
Well, prepare. It's coming.
Well, I mean, the illustrations and stuff like that. That's almost like a different thing. So, that's like a. Yeah,
I just started doing artwork. I got drawn to it because of Kisara.
Oh, I love your drawings. I love your drawings. The drawings they're often in the videos.
A UFO book, like a comic book. He has a comic channel on Facebook. Okay, where we put up. You should do one for that too. If you did a comic for our thing, we put it up. Okay. And I think he should do a huge book on it and tell the story in comics of his adventures. You know, I think we'd be here.
You were drawing scenes. Pardon?
I've got imposter syndrome. I don't think I'm an artist. I'm just having fun. But
well, that's if you like you don't want to be a tortured artist. So right, that's like whatever. Charlton Heston in when he plays Michelangelo, he was like, he's all tortured by his talent, you know. So,
but no, it's fun. It's like, wow, that came out pretty good.
Yeah, it is fun. Yeah. And
he draws all the time. He doesn't stop. He doodles everywhere, all the time. You can't pick up anything that he's written on and not find a.
I love art. Art is everywhere. If you look around, you will see art is everywhere around you.
Right.
And it's really interesting because this is something that the creative process is really people have negative emotions connected. Most people have negative emotions connected to the creative process.
Really, I love it.
That's sad. Why?
I know it's terrible. I think it's just because it's like if you're president of the bank, you don't want someone creative. You want someone like that's gonna do the math and not be creative. You don't want to. The creative people are troublemakers.
Creative.
Yay, art. Yeah.
Well, we're at the end of our time here. So if you have any last messages for the audience or any projects you're working on or things you want to promote, now would be the time.
Just the books. By the way, are in the show notes. And then my newer podcast is a rebirth of the old podcast, which is Hidden Experience, which you. So I think I've interviewed three or four times now, Preston, and so my website is mikeclelland.com, and if you go there, it's kind of a hub, so it can take you to the books, it can take you to some illustration work, it can take you to my blog, it can take you to the podcast. So that's the one-stop shopping spot if you want to find out about my work.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on the show, and thank you guys all for.
This was super fun.
Yeah, I want to.
We're gonna rebook you, okay? Seriously.
Oh, anytime. This is totally fun.
I want to give a shout out to all you guys in chat, all you wonderful people who helped donate to the show. Namaste. Thank you so much, Bridget. You guys are amazing. Bob and Crochet Sensi. This support just warms my heart. Each Monday you guys show up and deliver. Thank you, Wes Decker and Dub Snapper and Cliff Olinger. You guys are just the best. So thank you. And thank you everyone in chat. I love your comments. I didn't have to kick anyone out, not a single troll.
Oh, right on. I even made it through the whole show.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Well, this is the end of our show on this great Monday night. We will be back next Monday on the Lightgate, coming to you from New Orleans in the beautiful state of Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM.
Thanks.
And the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM, where you can see us on Roku, Facebook, Tumblr, no, not Tumblr, Rumble, YouTube. Oh, there we go. Roku and Facebook. We love y'all. Y'all have a great week. Please look for the owls. Look for the animals to talk to you. They're there. They are there. Good night, everybody. Till
Good night
then,
now.
till we meet again. Night, night.
Bye.